This is South Korea's Special Forces team, and among all of them, the 709 was the hardest to join. In that group, there was a special promotion ceremony. A guy has a bloody fist. The ceremony was to fight until only one person was left standing. The purest combat for survival, but a body falls to the ground. And with that, this tradition was being banned because of one person. That's because all the members of that unit couldn't return to work. In total, it would take 448 weeks for everyone to recover. All this because of the appearance of one person. The guy with the psychopathic smile asks if anyone else wants to play. After this incident, everyone in the platoon wanted to leave, and the guy was forced to give up his position. His name was Kim Joo-hyuk, and that made him a legend. But that was how a special forces person was released into society. We see 3 years later, someone at work gets hit in the face with a paper ball. The boss asks if he thinks this is a hotel to be relaxing. He starts throwing more paper balls, saying it doesn't make sense for him to be sleeping during work hours. The guy, a bit embarrassed, apologizes until he realizes the paper balls were actually a bunch of tissues. The guy blows his nose again and tells him he's lazy, throws another one on the table, and tells Joo-hyuk to throw it away for him. The guy's veins are almost bursting with anger. He immediately grabs his phone, goes online, and starts posting about everything happening at his job. He starts describing the whole situation happening in this workplace. He doesn't even care about being fired as long as this guy pays for what he did. The guy's about to explode, saying there are limits even to the boss's power. With that, he throws the phone on the table and relaxes in his chair, saying that apparently he will have to keep enduring this, just because he can't kill this guy yet since he's a civilian. At that moment, he receives a notification on his phone about this incident. He reads something about a capitalist slave getting a second chance. He's all confused about this project when something appears on his glasses. Suddenly, some kind of information is loaded. Joo-hyuk notices that something weird is happening. He's a bit disoriented, trying to calm down, until some information appears on his glasses. With that, an interface appears saying that the registration is complete. He would be the level 99 tester and the connection was made. The protagonist wonders what the hell that is. The strangest thing is that there is a voice in his head. When he tries to take the glasses off his face, the thing is already connected with a line going into his head. The voice warns him to put the glasses back on in 1 minute or he will be electrocuted. And Joo-hyuk wonders how something like this could be happening. He knows it was the company that gave him these glasses, but it doesn't make any sense. At that moment, someone calls for him, startling him. Man really startled him as she asks if he's okay. All radiant, she says that our boy doesn't look very well. When he tries to explain about the glasses, the voice says he can't tell anyone. So he stands there, not knowing what to say. And he says that he is fine, actually nothing is wrong. She says it's good to know and asks if after work today, when someone interrupts them and questions what kind of atmosphere that is. He points out that if they are going out, they should invite him, because he knows a bar with a great vibe. He approaches the girl and says that our protagonist has a lot of work, so the two of them can go alone. While our boy is there dying of rage, the guy says it's his fault for being so incompetent. Joo-hyuk doesn't respond, and the guy keeps mocking, saying he doesn't even have the self-esteem to defend himself. With that, Subian says she will go back to her seat. Joo-hyuk is there, already wanting to kill this bastard, saying he's lucky they're at work, while the guy beside him says he doesn't understand why so many people like this loser. That's when the system loading is complete. He hears something about receiving a mission and gets confused. The system starts analyzing the people around him. While the analysis is being done on the guy, he asks if the protagonist isn't going to say anything. That's when he gets confused, and the guy asks what kind of expression that is. The first mission had been given. Boss Cho Joo-hong had been selected as a target, and the first mission was to make the guy stop swearing. The protagonist was still confused when the system said there would be a penalty if he didn't do it. Joo-hong turned and told the protagonist he wanted to have a little chat with him on the roof, while our boy was wondering what kind of weird situation this was. However, the window said he had 10 seconds to complete the mission. As the time counted down, he wondered if he had signed something at the company authorizing this. He began to question whether there might be a camera around, or if, on the other hand, he was just going crazy. With that, the penalty was going to be given. Agent Joo-hyuk was going to lose 50%. He stared at the screen, wondering if it was what he was thinking. Those were the digits of his bank account. He quickly grabbed his phone, saying that something like this wasn't possible. It was probably just a tasteless joke. However, the moment he opened it, he saw that he had lost half of all his money. Hyuk couldn't take his eyes off the screen, and he shouted that this was madness. People in the office thought he was the crazy one. And then he felt embarrassed, not knowing what to say. However, Joo-hong asked if that shout was directed at him. A while later, they were already on the roof. The boss started pounding his chest, asking if he had lost his mind. Hyuk apologized, but the boss continued cursing, saying he had no idea what he was doing. He lit a cigarette, telling him to stop thinking he was something just because he went to the gym a bit. And what irritated him the most was that our protagonist didn't seem scared but disgusted, and he told him to say to his face what he thought, wanting to know if he thought he was dirty, since he had a disgusted look on his face. Hyuk just kept thinking that he had to hold back. He apologized, knowing that this was the only way to stay in this company. Unfortunately, it was the only option, until someone asked why he was holding back. Subion was beside him, asking if he was stupid. Hyuk was a bit confused, asking why she was there. She just said that life under capitalism was already hard enough for him to have to put up with that trash of a boss. She showed a recorder saying he needed to learn how to screw over bosses like that. Both of them were confused as she told him not to feel so down, and she said that the one who needed to apologize wasn't him. He looked at Ju Hong and asked if he agreed that he wasn't enjoying this. He immediately reached out, telling her to delete that recording. Soo-yeon was startled. She didn't expect the guy to go after her like that. However, Jun-hyuk grabbed the guy's fist. Hong looked down and asked if he had lost his mind. He yelled, telling him to let go. However, the system recognized aggressive behavior and words toward the user. Jun-hyuk twisted the guy's arm and said that's not how you do stretches. However, the mission was now given. He had to hit the guy's Adam's apple and would receive a 200% profit. Hyuk said he was very patient, so he didn't mind when the guy said things, but that only applied to him. The guy yanked his arm away, saying he must have lost his mind, and went to punch him in the face, asking if he thought he could take it. Hyuk easily dodged, and said that since the guy was so curious, he should take this, hitting him square in the Adam's apple. The boss was left gasping for air, all twisted up, and Hyuk said that since the boss only talked nonsense, he needed to be silenced. The boss fell to the ground like a fool. He turned to Soo-yeon and asked her to do him a favor. From now on, she was to pretend she saw nothing. And with that, the first mission was complete. The 200% profit would be applied. And at that moment, he was very happy, saying that apparently things were working. Hong started getting up, asking how this bastard dared to hit a superior. The system then notified that there had been no change in the target's words or attitude, and warned that they would have to proceed to level 2 of the mission. This time, it was to knock the guy out to receive 500%. Hyuk thought that from now on, he didn't care who was behind these missions, or even what their purpose was, because he was having fun. Hong warned that he would teach him a lesson now, and jumped at Hyuk to punch him. Hyuk thought to himself that he was only enduring this because he needed money. However, he sounded crazy, saying that if he could receive money like this, he immobilized Hong with a chokehold that turned the guy's face purple. He told him to relax, everything would be fine, because it would be over soon. The fool fell headfirst to the ground. The mission was a success. With that, 500% was applied. Immediately, the weakest capitalist took a look at his bank account. He saw the digits just going up, and said to himself that it was crazy that the money was multiplying. The bastard already had 170 million. The next chapter starts with an interview where the guy is asked about the skills he possessed. The protagonist said that he dedicated himself to the maximum and would complete any mission given. He had been trying to live an ordinary life like everyone else. However, recently he had experienced money multiplying. The system window showed he had completed 2 out of 10 missions. He'd received one, for example, to remove a guy's wig for 35%. Obviously, he completed it successfully. Another was to pour soda on someone's orchid. Of course, he also completed it successfully. With that, he received various missions, and the money just kept multiplying. As a result, in just 3 days, he already had a sly smile. So we know how much he had. The bastard had 587 million won, and Hyuk had a smile on his face, saying he was finally rich. He felt on top of the world, laughing. However, something unexpected happened. When he was up there, a drone approached. It dropped something in the air that landed in his hand, and with that, the system said he had passed the test. Hyuk was a bit confused, and inside the box was a loan ticket. He stared at it, and the system said he would have to proceed to the main mission. The goal was to gather 1 billion in 7 days, and if a participant couldn't do that, they couldn't continue advancing, and all the money would be reset. Now the poor guy was back in the office, desolate, wondering how he was going to gather 1 billion in 7 days. He also wanted to understand more about that loan ticket. On the back, it said he could get 100 million per use. To Hyuk, there was very little information and he had no idea how to proceed. First, he had to find out if those glasses were really made by the company. Seeing Hong, he knew he had the right person to ask. With a psychopathic smile, he called for the manager. The poor guy immediately felt a chill. As he thought about running away, Hyuk said he already knew he had heard him. The poor guy was there trembling, saying to himself that he was trying to avoid this guy as much as possible. But at that moment, our boy already approached and said he had a question. The guy was about to say something when he just covered his mouth and told him to answer the question quietly. Did he know who had made these company glasses? The guy said no, and he asked if he had at least heard about them, saying that from now on, the lie detector was activated. Hong shouted, saying he wasn't hiding anything. With that, Ryuk realized that the guy really didn't seem to know anything. So he asked if he had seen anyone else with similar glasses. The guy said no, and Ryuk realized that someone had already planned this. He started to question that the information wasn't enough when the system appeared. At that moment, the madman changed his expression, saying he had to leave early. The window said a game would start in 30 minutes somewhere nearby, and he was already leaving, saying he had to sail the high seas. He left laughing, saying he hoped the manager would take care of everything for him. Hong was left there fuming, saying he wanted to kill that bastard. The scene changes to another part of the city. Rick arrives there and wonders what the hell this is. He is sure this is the place indicated by the glasses. And at that moment, he receives the message that the game between the participants would start. He was confused because he didn't know there were other players. It's the money suitcase competition. The person who holds that suitcase full of money at the end wins. At that moment, some lights turn on. He sees the suitcase right in front of him, and he approaches, wondering if this is what they're talking about. He says to himself it would be stupid to have a suitcase full of money just sitting there. However, the thing is clearly stuffed with notes. The system warns that if someone steals the suitcase, he will lose the same amount of money from the bank, and the total time will be 10 minutes. Rick gets excited, saying he will earn 300 million just for holding it. The timer starts counting down, and he says he will defend this thing as if it were his life. However, at that moment, some honest citizens appear, telling him to drop the suitcase. One of them says he's not very smart for having help like that, and the blonde guy asks if it's really his first time in the game. Ryuk looks confused while the guys talk about not wanting to receive a death penalty. However, he's also crazy and tells the guys he has no intention but lets them try a bit. The madmen think they're dealing with some crazy bastard, which is true, I'm warning you. They ask if he doesn't understand the situation, and Ryuk asks what he doesn't understand. As far as he knows, it's just beating the three of them up. The guys start laughing, saying that money really drives people crazy. However, Rick just asks who they are and if they know who he is. Now the guys are closing in, tired of this bastard. One guy runs towards him, telling him to stop acting tough. He comes to hit him with a bat, but Rick defends with the suitcase and says he admires the courage. The guy is confused, and the psychopath says the fool doesn't understand the situation. He stretches out his hand, which seems to be moving in slow motion. However, the punch is precise on the face. Man, the guy went flying, bouncing on the ground. The friends look to the side and realize it's not going to be that easy. And Ryuk warns that if all the participants are at this level, it will be much easier than he expected. With that, the guys look at each other and make a signal, and each one starts to go in a different direction. Ryuk asks if that's their teamwork style. The two guys curse him and say he's going to die now. With that, each one comes from a different side. Ryuk just observes the first one. He kicks the ground, throwing dust and stones in his direction. The guy ends up having to cover his eyes so he doesn't go blind. However, the other says he forgot the front, already about to stab the boy. But the protagonist easily defends against all the attacks with the suitcase, and tells the guy that's not how you use a dagger. The guy tells him to shut up and die already. The attack seems to hit hard, and the blonde guy says he warned him it would be better to have left the suitcase. However, Rick had blocked the dagger with the suitcase handle, and told the guy he failed. With that, he broke the dagger using the suitcase. What is this? This guy is crazy. The guy is looking at the remaining piece of the blade when something is already coming at his head. The fool's spine was compressed, and with that, he passed out on the ground, and Ryuk said he warned him. A pat on the shoulder, saying he had to warn him. He was a veteran of the 709th Special Forces. That's when he remembered something. He turns to the guy and says he has a question to ask. The guy is still standing there, wiping his eye, and Ryuk says you better not attack. The guy curses him, asking what the hell he wants to say. Rick just wants to know who's running this game. The guy says he has no idea since he received that bracelet and then started participating. Rick realizes that not everyone has the glasses, so what's the difference? He turns and starts thinking about various alternatives while the guy in the background notices this distraction. He gets excited, thinking the guy is very stupid. However, at that moment, Rick appears, asking if he's thinking about stabbing him. The guy says no, he would never make such an attack. But Ryuk lands a punch on his chin, saying he, on the other hand, would. With that, the guy passed out on the ground, and Ryuk wonders why everyone is so weak. At that moment, someone shouts, saying no. It's the blonde guy from before, saying things are unfair when the system warns that he will lose 300 million due to the rules. The bracelet says he has gone bankrupt since he owes more than $1 billion, and with that, the collection would begin. Participant 016 was being pursued. Rick just watched, wondering what was happening, when suddenly the blonde guy started to go crazy. His entire body was covered in purple marks, and he begged to be saved. In an instant, he fell dead to the ground. Ryuk wondered if that was a reaction to some kind of drug. It seemed that the bracelet and those glasses had ways of injecting something. He was already worried, seeing that he was apparently trapped in this thing, until someone appeared saying they had found another money-blind fool. A masked guy says he's no different, and the other next to him says now he has no way out. In these games, participants become incredibly rich, or they lose everything and have no other option. Ryuk says that's when he realized. All the participants in this game were people who had been driven by money, and now they were all someone's puppets. Somewhere else, someone watches several screens talking about the participants. Ryuk knows this mission was easy but won't stay that way, especially now that he is surrounded by many people. And this system warns that the game will start with 48 participants. Now the sly one says has increased a bit. The entire group is already surrounding him. And the problem is that there are still 6 minutes left on the clock. The strongest predator in nature, the Siberian tiger. Even if this type of monster has to face a pack of wolves, it still has to be cautious. However, for that guy there, Ryuk just tells everyone to come at him. He doesn't care about any of this and is already warmed up. Everyone runs towards him, saying that guy is worth 300 million. However, the psychopath smiles, asking if they really think they're going to catch him. With that, he grips the suitcase handle and smashes it into the faces of the first two, then turns and hits two more. Each one who gets hit with the suitcase loses 300 million. People wonder how that's possible. They're all scared, realizing that whoever gets hit with the suitcase really loses all that money. Ryuk, reading the situation, asks why everyone is hesitating so much. The guys start to realize that this game is a bit risky. However, Rick says if they don't come, maybe he will. One holding a bat tells him not to come closer and orders someone to throw something. With that, people start picking up stones and bricks, saying they will solve it that way. However, Rick doesn't care and easily defends with the suitcase. The fool realized that nothing was working, and soon noticed a shadow over him. Obviously, it was Rick coming to finish off another one. Participant 36 also goes bankrupt, and everyone wonders who this crazy guy who entered the game is. Ryuk looks back and asks who wants to lose some money. The masked guys standing around are just watching in fear. People start to realize that forfeiting the mission for 100 million is better than getting hit with a suitcase. With that, Ryuk stands there and the guys run away in desperation. He sees that some are still there and asks if they didn't leave. Apparently, the poor guys there owe more than 900 million, so if they forfeit, they die anyway. Ryuk says he doesn't care about that crap and tells them to come at him. In an instant, everyone jumps at him. People are all around while Ryuk stands there. The guy still has time to say this is very good. They should have done this from the beginning. Obviously, here comes the suitcase smack. The drone is there recording everything, even with a drop of sweat. And the guys running the game don't understand who they called in. A while later, the ground is covered in blood. The guys have twisted eyes. Ryuk says those bastards left his suit all torn. And with that, the time reaches 0 seconds. The mission is complete, and he earns 300 million. He grinned like a clown, saying it didn't matter because now he could buy a new one. With that, the system announced that the winner was decided and everyone should leave. Heck immediately threw the suitcase over his shoulder. He walked away, waving and saying it was quite fun. However, a girl nearby said that participant wouldn't last long. The guy next to her said he was quite special but drew a lot of attention, and he had no idea how dangerous that was. However, for our protagonist, life used to be the same every day. He worked without even knowing why and returned to a dark, empty home. But now it was no longer like that, and he was heading to the Sigil Hotel. A night there cost 20 million for the suite. The food, of course, was the best there was. And the money that would have taken him decades to earn, he had won in 4 days. The boy was motivated, saying this was great. His account had 580 million and he had just earned 300 million from the suitcase. Now he was excited, saying this was the life. With that, someone entered the room. The girl lifted the lid off the plate, saying it was what he had ordered, a top-quality steak cooked by a 3-star Michelin chef. He took a bite. However, when he put it in his mouth, he felt something strange. The woman smiled, asking if he liked it. He said it was incredibly delicious. The girl was a bit confused because she was clearly also a player of the bracelet. With that, she took off her wig, asking how he wasn't nervous. He, completely confused, said hello. She approached, thinking he was crazy and wondering how he could be so careless. She was confused when he said he had seen her many times, knowing that he knew they had been following him since the suitcase test. The man, scratching his face, said it seemed like he wanted to be followed. He was an old man who said that was quite interesting. Ryuk said he didn't know what they wanted, but they didn't seem dangerous. And he also needed someone to ask about the missions. The old man asked if he was thinking of extorting information, and the protagonist said it was something like that. The old man smiled, saying he also wanted to ask something. With that, time began to pass. Outside, the man asked how he received the missions. He said he got a device and did a test mission. The old man questioned why the bracelet wasn't on his wrist. However, he just responded by asking if that was some kind of rule. After all, he had no intention of revealing that the device was in his glasses. The weird girl asked if it was on his heel, and if he was the type to use it that way. He ignored her and said he would ask a question. He wanted to know how to remove the thing. The old man asked him what the price of freedom was. This left Ryuk a bit confused, and the man said 2 billion. That's the amount they charge to be free of the item. Until he pays 2 billion, the device will never deactivate. Ryuk asked if these people were the game operators, and the man agreed. The people who created this hell were the ones who dominated the deep web. It seemed they had tens of billions of dollars gained illicitly, and that's how they created this hell for the participants. Most end up in debt and taking out a lot of loans. But in the end, no one knows where they are taken. The only thing is that no one ever returns. Ryuk asked why the old man was revealing all this. The man said it was because he wanted to find out what kind of person he was. He wanted to know if freedom or money was more important to Ryuk. The boy said that was very obvious. He could buy freedom with 10 billion. The old man said in that case, money seemed more important to him, and asked if he was confident he could win in any mission. If that were the case, they should play a simple game. A message appeared saying that 002 was requesting a private game. He had the option to accept and ask if it was some kind of test. He immediately accepted, saying he wasn't the type to refuse. With that, the system told him to confirm the opponent's information, and he wondered what the hell that was. The old man asked why he wasn't reacting. Did he see something? The bastard Gu Wunmo was ranked 3, with 14 wins and 1 loss. and had a total of 4.8 billion. The system notified that the mission would start and he couldn't back out. The old man just wanted to know what kind of game it was because he was anxious. Our boy told him to wait a second. However, the man said it was too late and the roulette would start. With that, a random one-on-one game was chosen, and it was a simple game of double dice. Basically, whoever has the dice with the highest sides wins in the end. If no side matches the other, the points on the highest side count. And if a pair is formed, the sides multiply. However, if someone rolls 1 and 6, they win instantly. With that, someone opened the suitcase, announcing that each chip is worth 10 million, and they will play according to Rick's money since he has less. The old man says he likes a simple game. However, Rick asks if this is just a game of luck. The old man says yes, but asks if the boy is lucky because he seems very confident. Rick gives a little smile. In reality, he is screaming with rage inside. His life had always been unlucky. In school, he never got a question right when guessing. He also never won anything in the lottery. In this life, luck never benefited him. However, then he says to wait a second. He made 880 million in 3 days, so maybe his current luck wasn't so bad. The old man asks if he is ready. Rex slaps his hand on the table and shouts, throwing the dice, saying to start already. With that, the dice landed on 1. They already saw that in the first round he wasn't doing well. Desperate, he looks at what the old man rolled. The old man says he didn't have much luck either, rolling a 2. Our boy gets excited, thinking now it all depends on the black die. The old man says he will bet 100 million to reveal the black die. Rick realizes the guy isn't going easy since he doesn't have as much money as the old man, especially considering he would lose everything if he failed in this game. However, sweating, he says he wants to see what the old man has. The girl says she will reveal the dice. The old man's die is a 3. So in this round, he had a total of 3 points. Ryuk gets excited. He only needs a 4, a 5, or a 6. She slowly lifts the cup, revealing that the number 2 die was another 1. The poor guy is desperate. In a minute, he lost his 100 million. The old man says he's a lucky boy and got a pair in the first round. However, Rick says that now that he has used up his luck, the rest will be his victory. But you can imagine what happened. The guy won 9-3, then 5-4, then 16-6. The boy's hand was already trembling. About 500 million had evaporated. His soul left his body, and the girl said they would start the last round. Our boy threw the first die, and the guy rolled his with a 1 and 6. Now he was confident since he finally had a good advantage. He said 300 million. The old man said he would bet everything, saying he would give him a chance to get it all back. Ryuk was confused, wondering if the old man had lost his mind. Why was the guy so confident in getting 1 and 6? He had already checked that there was nothing wrong with the game. Thinking it was impossible to manipulate this, he accepted. With that, the girl said the dice would be revealed. And Ryuk thought if he knew what kind of person this old man was, he would never have accepted this game. This guy was a legendary gambler, and in the end, he was just another victim. With that, player number 1 rolled a 6, becoming the automatic winner. All the fortune Ryuk had made evaporated. The old man immediately stood up, saying it was fun and he wanted to see him again. The poor guy was soulless when the card fell in front of him, and the old man said to just send a message. The next day, at dinner time, our boy was back at the company meeting with the boss, giving a speech. Everyone clinked their beers in celebration, and Hong looked to the side and saw something strange. Ryuk was drinking beer with a straw, fuming with rage. The friends next to him had no idea why he was acting like that. He wanted to ask, but he also wasn't keen on interacting with that lunatic. Because of that, he quietly drank his beer. At that moment, someone approached and asked what his name was, saying that for a company dinner, he didn't seem very happy. It was President Baek who asked if he had any problems at work. The two stared at each other like fools. And with that, he went back to sipping his drink with a desolate face. Hong asked if that bastard had lost his mind ignoring the president like that. Immediately stood up, trying to give explanations about his friend. The president said it was okay. Sometimes a guy had a problem and didn't want to talk about it there. Put his hand on the protagonist's shoulder and asked if he wanted to talk outside. People were talking about how Kip was acting very strange today. A friend said he must have lost money in an investment while Suyeon just watched. She asked if he would be okay since the president hadn't drunk much. The other girls said the president was a very kind person when he wasn't drunk. The bastard's nickname was the Smiling Buddha, and he already called the protagonist a bastard, telling him to explain himself. Grabbing him by the tie, he warned that as an employee, he should be having a lot of fun. He started dancing in front of him, saying he didn't understand what was wrong with this kid's generation, warning that trash like him could be replaced at any moment. However, Cut was just thinking about the 880 million he would take decades to earn in this place. Why would he keep working for these bastards to earn money? Until the boss slapped him in the face, asking if he wasn't listening. The guy warned he would give him 100,000 for each slap as a kind of mental education. Cuck stood there thinking that if this guy touched him one more time, he would lose his arm, until the mission appeared. And with that, he had to change his mindset. He took another slap. The old man thanked him, saying he was very polite. At that moment, Huck changed his expression, saying that indeed these slaps taught many valuable lessons. He said that today he realized it was an incredible honor to work alongside such a promising boss. He grabbed his hand and asked if he could share more of his teachings. Bake started smiling, saying he was a cute bastard, saying that now, yes, he saw the boy's spirit. With that, he said they had to go back to that bar and he would serve a beer, and they would become friends. With that, Huck thought, of course, he would do that, because the mission was to kidnap the president to earn 500%. And obviously, this operation had already begun. In the next scene, the boss is waking up and seeing a shoe. He is still very drunk and doesn't know what is happening. When he sees the protagonist, he asks, "What the hell is this?" However, Huck just says that he has been kidnapped. The mission is to keep this guy in this location for 24 hours, and there are still 16 left. The boss asks if he is joking, but Huck just asks if he doesn't remember, explaining that when they were returning, the boss said he wanted to keep drinking. That's why he brought the boss here, to stop him from embarrassing himself in the street. The boss tells him to untie him and give back his phone. Huck says that while he was sleeping, he took a look and found some strange things. Buck starts losing his mind. He yells at him, calling him trash and asking if he's not going to untie him, asking if he forgot he could go to jail for this. Huck warns that the boss doesn't understand the situation, shows on the phone several photos the boss took secretly, and says he is a perverted son of a bitch. The protagonist also says he knows these recordings were made in the bathroom, so there must be a camera installed, and stared at the fool, saying he didn't understand how he hacked all this, explaining that many strange things happen in this world. But the truth is, he received a special talent as a mission reward, the hacking ability, and asks the boss if he finally gets it. If he hands that phone to the police, something very interesting would happen. Huck says now it's explained why this kidnapping mission was sent, and while browsing the phone, he saw a strange list. It contained the names of women who were not to receive any promotion. At that moment, Huck understood that this meant the boss was blackmailing them in some way, and he already asked Bake what he thinks the company's employees are. The Buddha just smiles, saying that dogs have to obey their master, warning that what he does with those girls is give them a chance they would never receive, and explaining that it's normal since everyone has some secrets. At this, Huck loses his mind, saying the boss has no salvation, but just smiles, asking if that is a threat. At that, he tells the guy to shut up, saying he will now receive 100,000 for each slap, and gives the same speech, saying to understand it as re-education. The Buddha yells, saying that if he touches a hair on his head, takes a slap, his eyes almost popping out of his head. The fool even falls face first to the ground. Huck warns that just because he has some money, he can't act like this. He puts the guy back on his feet, who asks what he wants. Huck explains that living a normal life where you earn money and try to be happy is also difficult. However, it becomes even more difficult when you have a trash boss like him. Gives another slap, asking if he enjoys making others' lives miserable. The Buddha continues wanting to know what the protagonist wants. Huck says he wants him to understand what injustice means. The boss trembles at that moment. When he goes to say he was wrong, someone appears from behind saying they found him. Two other players say maybe they can save that person, and the Buddha starts screaming, saying that bastard kidnapped him. The guys tell the old man to relax, that they will solve this quickly. They receive the system mission to save this guy for 200 million, and they apologize to the protagonist, saying unfortunately, they will have to do this. Huck says it's okay, he understands, and the guys are confused, asking if this guy is crazy. Just as he was about to say something, 2 feet came flying at him. He took a flying kick that sent him into the wall. The poor friend didn't even understand what happened, and Huck was already coming for him too. He struck his neck, forehead, and hand. In 2 seconds, the 2 fools were unconscious. After that, several other participants arrived, but the scene repeated itself in front of the president every time. The difference in level between the guys was frightening. The boss began to think that even if he wasn't tied up, he didn't stand a chance. Well, at that moment, the rope was cut. He was confused, wondering who did it. It was Huck, who apparently wanted to toy with him. The boss fell to the ground, and Huck said he seemed bored. He then asked why they didn't negotiate the salary. He wanted to earn 5 times what he was currently getting and also worth a minimum. And obviously, the most important thing from now on, President Bake would be his dog. Until he had the chance to become human again, he hoped Buck would do well. The scene changes to a prison. Someone knocks on the door, call in for number 3270, saying he will have to endure there for 1 more day since soon he will be free to do whatever he wants. This guard had received the mission to let an extremely dangerous criminal escape. The healthy-looking guy is headbutting the wall, and the system warns that when he manages to escape, the punishment game will begin. The next day at the protagonist's company, Hong was arriving and saw a bunch of people gathered. He asked what was going on, and someone told him to take a look. That's when he got confused. Huck was there in a suit on the throne saying good morning to everyone, and Hong found out that the damn Huck had received a special position. Now he knows things won't be easy for him. Huck says he is eager to work a lot with his friends. Sometime later, he says that putting everything aside, the way he makes money has completely changed because of those glasses. He has already managed to earn and lose more money than he would have in his entire life. Through the mission, he received that loan ticket again, and with it, he received another 500 million in the account. The problem is that there is a reason why he is not happy at all. The mission to make 1 billion will end in 1 day and 4 hours, and when that happens, all the money will be reset. He is seething with anger, saying there is no way he will go back to being poor. He bangs on the table, saying he doesn't care. Whatever the mission will be, he wants it to appear so he can solve it. Back at that prison, one of the guards talks about an escort that is being made. 10 prisoners under special supervision are being taken. The guy in the octagon says there is nothing wrong and no need to worry. However, in reality, he has already killed the real driver. With that, he says it's time to continue. He goes to the back of the bus to open something. There are all the prisoners who are being transported. He just throws a bunch of keys to the first one, tells him to try to escape or do whatever he wants. However, he warns that they can't escape the game no matter what they try. When everything starts, the hackers will take control of the police, and then everyone should run as far as possible. The prisoners are all confused about this hacker and game business, but the guy just warns that for convicts like them, no matter where they go, they will never escape. The mission this guy received is to hunt down a bunch of fugitives, which is why he's releasing everyone. These were men desperate for freedom, people who were desperate for money. The question is, which type of person would be more dangerous? A guy who looks like an albino Thanos is prisoner 3270, and the hunting mission for him pays 500 million. Everyone stares into the back, asking what they will do now. The guy asks if they remember where they buried the money, and they say yes. The bald guy tells them to retrieve it, and they have to flee Korea as fast as possible. What they don't know is that there is a drone following the bus the whole time. Looking at the clock, someone wonders where these bastards think they are going. Other players who also received the mission to hunt the prisoners are watching. 4 hours after the punishment game started, the harpoon guy yells at someone to stop. He fires his weapon, hitting a fool in the thigh. The guy falls to the ground and he starts pulling, saying that a prisoner like him needs to learn to live a more honest life. A friend puts a hand on his shoulder, saying it's true, and they will earn a lot of money. Actually, it was the crazy guy holding his friend's arm, questioning why so many people had the same watch. This was prisoner 2804 with a 300 million reward. The harpoon guy got startled and the prisoner asked who they were. Already pulling the force, he warned that the guy would have to answer. The cut went clean through and another arm flew off. Sometime later, this guy passed the information about these people to 3804. Looking at the fallen body, he wondered how many had arrived, but he put his hand on his head and said it didn't matter. And it was then that the player realized. The ones being hunted were the participants. With that, the poor guy fell lifeless to the ground. The bald guy said he hadn't had so much fun in a long time, but he told his friends it was time to finish this. They needed to bury these guys, get the money, and get out of there. The strong guy said those bastards weren't gang members. It seemed the information about the escaped prisoners appeared on their watches. When the guy mentioned there was a bounty on their heads, the bald guy got excited. He asked his timid friend how much it was worth. The guy said 500 million. With that, he punched the air, saying his dream had finally come true. But the friend wondered if the guy was trying to show he was a big idiot. He then asked the strong guy how much money they had already found. The guy explained they had found 3 sets of 500 million and were still missing 3 more. The guy smiled, saying the bastard really profited a lot. If he could take advantage of this dumb monster, he would make about 3 billion. He started laughing with the madmen, saying it was a new beginning, while someone watched from afar, wondering why they were dancing. Another seemed to be digging up money. Seeing the bodies, he knew it was much more dangerous than he had imagined. 2 other players decided they had to do it since they had come a long way. The guys told each other that adding up the buried money, they would make a lot. But one of them questioned whether it was right to treat humans as if they were game animals. The guy grabbed him by the collar and asked if he hadn't seen their criminal records. Those bastards weren't humans, they were heads worth 500 to 300 million. He told the guy to focus and stick to the plan. With a ballista in hand, the guy said it would be easy to solve this from a distance. All they needed was to wear the guys out if they tried to run. At that moment, someone appeared, saying he couldn't let that happen. The guy was startled, asking what the hell that was. Someone said they didn't need to be so on guard. It was Hyuk, saying he was just a simple office worker. The guy was confused about this crazy guy who appeared out of nowhere. But clearly, that crazy guy didn't seem to have come from a company. Hyuk just said he had a very good plan. Were they interested in hearing about it? Everyone was silent, staring at each other. One of them said he had no idea who this bastard with this crappy plan was. Hyuk was just smiling. But the guy already aimed the ballista, asking if he thought they would be bait for him. He warned that if he didn't disappear by the count of 3, he would shoot. While the guy counted, Hyuk said it was the best plan of all. But the guy reached 3 and told him to die. The arrow flew towards our boy. He seemed surprised that they really had the courage to do that. He sliced it with a blade, cutting the arrow midair. Then the guys realized it wouldn't be so easy. The thing even spun worse and landed in his hand, which broke it, saying that's why they were a bunch of amateurs. Once again, he asked if they didn't like the plan. With that, the guys dropped their weapons, saying it was a very good plan. He smiled, saying they could start the operation then. Back with the prisoners, they were still digging up the money. One of them was furious because the bastard forgot where he buried it. That's when they looked to the side and saw the protagonist's friends. The prisoners immediately said they would have to deal with a few more. Suddenly, the fools ran away in desperation. The strong guy from before shouted in anger, telling them to follow those bastards. With that, some of them began the chase. In the forest, the guy was desperate while the crazies ran after him. All Huck said was to bring these guys to a place he had marked. With that, they approached an abandoned shack. The guy was exhausted, but he knew everything would be resolved if he got there. But when they stopped in front, they found no one. They began to wonder where that damn guy who led them was. But the prisoners were already approaching from behind. They warned that they were a bunch of pests and it was good they would be buried right there. One of them came running to hit them with a shovel, but a little axe flew through the air, hitting the shovel the guy was holding. The prisoner turned, asking who the bastard was who did that. Huck just said he didn't need to know. Holding a burning stick, he said what they needed to know was that no one would escape this place. They would stay there, getting beaten and handing over all the money to him. The other players asked if they were also part of this beating. Huck jumped off the roof immediately. One of the prisoners remarked that there was no way to escape. Huck landed a kick to the face of the first guy, dragging him across the ground. He foamed at the mouth, unconscious. Like a maniac, Huck told everyone to start panicking, but the prisoners turned, deciding they had to deal with this lunatic. The three criminals rushed at him, but Huck easily dodged the first one. Another guy came in for a cut from the left, and Huck glanced to the side, focusing on the one in front. He landed an elbow strike to the one behind and disarmed the other. He even caught the knife that fell from the guy's hand. In a second, the two fools were nearly down. The guy watching from the back had a dumbfounded look, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, his body turned red, and as he fainted, the last one still didn't know what was happening. Huck just threw the knife, hitting the guy's hand and disarming him. He then advanced and had his hand next to the guy's head. Another fool was taken down. It didn't even take 5 seconds for everyone to be on the ground. The other players realized it was impossible. In a game where you had to choose between money and life, that bastard was on the hunt. 4 criminals had been defeated, earning him 400 million. The scythe guy approached, asking who the hell did this. The guy was worth 300 million and had a long criminal record. He asked Huck if he was the one who took everyone down. Huck just questioned what he would do and if he was there for revenge. The guy killed his friend and said he was there to teach him how to finish the job, asking if he was an amateur who didn't know he had to finish the person off. Huck stood still for a second, saying nothing. The guy approached, saying he was going to put holes in his body. But Huck said, unfortunately, he had been stabbed many times before. The guy laughed, calling him a hilarious bastard, and lunged, saying he was used to it. Huck dodged the attack, realizing it wouldn't be difficult. But strangely, the guy smiled for a second and almost hit his jaw with the other hand. That's when Huck realized this guy wasn't as easy as the others. The bastard was ambidextrous. Out of nowhere, Huck told him to wait a second. The guy laughed, asking if he was that scared. Huck went to the utensils nearby and said he was thinking of something. He picked up something, saying it was enough. The other players were curious, watching from the side. Huck announced it had been a while since he had to settle things like this. The guy found it strange and asked if he was serious. The lunatic said he had activated the mantis formation and asked if the guy wasn't scared. Huck said all those overconfident bastards changed their attitude when he pulled out a knife. Even if they showed courage for a second, a few stabs had them on their knees, begging for forgiveness. He liked that a lot, but the guy in front of him wasn't normal. Huck said it was time for the mantis attack. He charged at the guy with a series of slashes. The fool tried to defend, but it wasn't easy. Huck kept shouting that the sequence wouldn't end. The prisoner couldn't believe he was being forced to retreat. He cursed Huck, saying he was the true ambidextrous, and made a precise attack towards his neck. But the lunatic dodged and laughed, saying it seemed the guy wasn't that good. The guy couldn't understand why this bastard was laughing in this situation, not to mention that one simple mistake would mean his death. Then he stopped to think and said he understood. The reason he felt something was wrong was because that bastard was treating him like an insect. He got even angrier, wanting to know who this guy was. He ran towards Huck, saying he would teach him a lesson. Huck stood still, just watching him approach, and asked why he should take such a fight seriously. A scythe swung in a sequence. At that moment, the guy fell dead on the other side. Huck said they found out who the real ambidextrous was. With that, criminal 2804 was taken down, earning him 400 million. But the bastard was excited, saying now there was only one left. He was humming while the other players followed him dejected. Feeling embarrassed, one of the guys asked where they were going. Huck said there was still one bastard left, so they had to deal with him. The guys began listing all the crimes the bald guy had committed, saying maybe it wasn't a good idea. The truth was they came there just to catch the others and escape this guy because he was very dangerous. But then one of them looked to the side. Immediately, everyone's pupils contracted and they seemed to have seen a monster. The bald guy was right behind them. In half a second, he was already throwing a punch at Huck's ribs. Seeing Huck block it with his arm, the guy was impressed. But Huck, with a smile, landed a punch on his chin. The guy took the hit, but he smiled and said the kid wasn't so bad. He asked how Huck blocked it, and Huck asked how he took that punch. They both came to the same conclusion. This fight was going to be interesting. The problem was, while Huck was smiling, the bald guy was gritting his teeth. He enthusiastically went for another punch. Huck landed a full-force punch on the bald guy's nose, making his face look all twisted. Before the guy could react, Huck had already stepped on his back and moved to the side, landing a kick straight to the chin. The bald guy didn't look too healthy anymore. Hyuk smiled, saying it was all settled now. But strangely, the guy almost landed a punch on Hyuk. Hyuk couldn't believe those hits hadn't affected him. Worse, the guy's punches seemed to be getting stronger. Hyuk knew that if this guy caught him, it would be over. He managed to duck and dodge the grab. He kept evading, thinking to himself that if he could escape this, he'd have a chance. That's when he noticed something. The bald guy had crouched down to support his hand on the ground. In a second, he disappeared and jumped towards Hyuk. The bastard hugged in full force. Now, Hyuk wasn't doing too well either. The guy started lifting him, hugging him tightly. He even made a heart shape with his hands, saying that now he had been caught. Holding him in his arms, he said Hyuk should understand that with the weight difference, it was over for him. Hyuk knew this was common, but he moved his hand to the guy's face, who told him to give up. Hyuk, however, knew something that went beyond common sense. The superhuman strength that only appears in extreme situations. The combination of endorphins and adrenaline. He started crushing the bald guy's skull with his hand. He apologized, saying that unfortunately he was a bit special. He explained that generally he had to control his strength not to kill people. But since the guy was so tough, it seemed okay. With that, he slammed his head into the ground. The bald guy got buried like a plant. The criminal was defeated and Hyuk received 500 million. The drone filmed everything, and now the hunt was complete. Hyuk mentioned that he'd probably have sore muscles tomorrow. However, the bastard had earned a total of 1.2 billion. Looking around, he said the place reminded him of the old days. The other players couldn't believe he took down everyone alone. Hyuk whispered something to them. He told them to keep quiet and take the money the guys were digging up. They approached Hyuk and said they would handle the rest. Hyuk looked at them and asked if they were really going to do it. The guys obviously hesitated for a second. As Hyuk was about to say it was fine, something hit his neck. He realized immediately it was a tranquilizer dart. The other players also got hit by the same attack. Hyuk was still standing, but the other three collapsed immediately. He used his analysis ability to understand what was happening. Someone approached. A masked guy asked how Hyuk was still standing after being hit by that. Hyuk tried to gather information, but access was denied. He asked who the hell that guy was. Two chain people approached, and the guy told him to wait a bit. Hyuk saw an entire group approaching as he was about to lose consciousness. His body fell to the ground. The masked guy said he was looking for